Hey, this is a video for 6.9, Hydroelectric Power. So go ahead and check out the overview and set up your guided notes. So globally, hydroelectric power is a major renewable energy source. And the leaders, by far the leader in the world is China. And we'll talk a little bit about some of their accomplishments. But we got China, we got Brazil, Canada, United States, and India. All of these, United States has a lot of major rivers. Canada has a lot of major rivers. Brazil has the Amazon River. So there are a lot of capabilities to have hydroelectric dams. Now, this is the actual production, so it doesn't refer to the ability of a country to have hydropower. And this is from, again, the website Our World in Data, an amazing resource. So one way of having hydroelectric power is by water impoundment, and this is basically the construction of a dam. So what they do is they block the flow of the river, and then they allow a tiny channel to come through where it turns a turbine, and the turbine again is attached to a generator, and then that generates the electricity. So there is a lot of work that needs to go in. There's a lot of maintenance that is involved. But you do have this high amount of potential energy because it's going to have a lot of pressure back here behind the dam. And that's going to allow this water to have a faster velocity when it flows. So this high potential energy is really key. Now, the largest reservoir is from the Grand Coulee Dam in Washington State, and the largest hydroelectric dam is the Three Gorges Dam in China. It's on the Yangtze River. You don't have to know that, but it is in China, and it is the largest. I think there's other ones that are being considered or being constructed currently, but right now this is the leader. So there are some pros and cons to water impoundment systems. This is actually, I took this in Ecuador, in the lovely town of Baños, but you can see the water kind of gushing out here. So this is a hydroelectric power plant. There's a giant reservoir back here, which you cannot see. I mean, you can kind of make out that there's something back there, but the river is much lower. So the level was right up to the top of this cement factor, the cement level, and it causes a lot of buildup of pressure. So the reservoir that is created behind there can be used for recreation. It can be used for fishing, for water skiing, for swimming, for aesthetic purposes. There's a great deal of employment from the maintenance of this hydroelectric power plant. It is very reliable in the electricity production, especially if you have a big enough reservoir that can generate a lot of pressure, then the water flow will be quite high and it can turn that turbine. And during operation, there's absolutely no emissions. So there's no carbon dioxide, there's no methane that's being released. Now, in the construction of it, there will be some, and I'll talk about that in a second. We can also control flooding. So in areas where there is seasonal flooding, when you have melting snow or ice from, the mountains, and it can control flooding because you can restrict or allow water to flow. Now, it's negative because you have fish migration that is impacted. One fish, notably salmon, they swim upstream in order to go to their spawning ground. So they will breed in the area where they were born, and they need to swim upstream. And if there is a dam in the way, then they cannot get to where they need to go. There's also going to be restricted nutrients downstream because these nutrients are in the sediments, in the river sediments. And if these sediments build up behind this dam, they will not be able to travel downstream to where they will be available to organisms down in the delta. The delta is where the river empties into the sea, and it has a lot of sedimentation, which is why it has this delta shape, a triangle shape. It's also going to be less oxygen in the warmer water upstream. because there is going to be, the water will be sitting there longer, it will not maybe be moving as fast, so it will absorb more solar energy. You also may have removed trees from here because a lot of this area was then, when you built the dam, you killed a lot of trees and a lot of plants that were living back there because it basically just got flooded. So there's going to be a lot more solar energy absorbed by this water, and that could hold less oxygen, which could be a problem for the fish or other organisms that live in the river. And there's also impacts from the construction. Like I said, the flooding of this is a major habitat disruption, but also concrete releases carbon dioxide. And you might not have known this, but it's a major it is a contributor to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Granted, there's other things that are far worse, but we really should be considering this as well. There's also humans that are displaced, and there's going to be destruction of habitats. For some, especially we're going to learn about some of these systems, especially the Three Gorges Dam. Like, Chinese government said, I don't care, get out. Like, millions of people were displaced. We don't really have, within the metro, the New York City, and within the 5 boroughs, I don't even think that we have any hydroelectric dams. I may be mistaken, but we go farther upstate, you will see some, but we're not going to. So one way to help the fish out is to construct these fish ladders, which is basically like little pools that are at different levels. So it looks like steps, like stairs. And the fish, you can see them swimming right here. They will just jump from one puddle to the next puddle. So they will be able to still get upstream. And this would be along next to the dam. So if this were a fish ladder, there would be a dam, somewhere over here. And then I guess there's people watching it as well. They also have things like fish cannons where the fish can get shot up this cannon, kind of like a big giant vacuum cleaner that just kind of sucks it up. But I don't know how practical they are to use. Now, another system is the run-of-the-river system. So if you don't want to have all of the habitat destruction from the construction of a water impoundment system, you can have something that is called run-of-the-river. So if you see, they'll build a little channel and have a little tiny hydroelectric plant off to the side. And this is good because it's less disruptive to the ecosystem. There's minimal sedimentation. There might still be some sedimentation in this area. There may be sedimentation from the construction of these channels. This typically is not a natural channel. They will dig this channel just to let some of the water go through. But there's going to be lower potential energy because you don't have all of this pressure buildup behind the dam. And the water level may be intermittent. Some rivers get higher and lower, like where I'm from, the Red River of the North, flooded every spring because of the snow melt, and it's very flat. So there's times when it's really low, there's times when it's really high. If it's really low, there might not be enough water flow to turn this turbine and power the generator. Another form is using tidal energy, and that's where you would have this big giant fan. As the tide comes in and comes out in coastal areas, you could generate electricity that way. Again, it is less disruptive than a hydroelectric, like a water impoundment system. But there's limited spots where this could be installed. So it can't just be installed on any sort of tidal area. You really want to see areas where the tide comes in and there's a marked a really obvious difference in high tide and low tide because you want to have enough water flow to turn this turbine. Also, the production will probably not live up to the demand. There'll be far less production than the demand calls for. And it will disrupt animal migration. So when you build these tidal plants out, in particular areas, it may impact whale migration. It may impact that sounds as well, may impact aquatic mammals that use sonar. And we'll talk more about that in future lessons. But in the meantime, I would like you to respond to this check for understanding. And for our FRQ practice, I want you to describe an environmental impact of hydroelectric power generation. I hope that this video was informative. I thank you for your attention, and I will see you soon.